Merry Christmas 2018!
Or whatever holiday season you celebrate at this time of year.
Happy holidays!
Excuse our rustling.
Tinsel!
We are adorned in tinsel right now. And we are not only celebrating the last episode of 2018 of the Bechdel Theatre podcast, but we're also celebrating our 2-year podcast anniversary.
Yay! Oh my god, I can't believe we've been doing it for 2 years.
I know.
Wow.
Who listened to the first episode with the wonderful Jada Nuka?
Oh my god. Who listened? Who's been
Hopefully
listening since the
everyone.
beginning? All of you. No, there have been people who've joined since then.
That's true, but I'm hoping they've gone back and
Yeah,
caught
do
up.
your homework, guys.
Yes. And so we have a wonderful interview today. But 2018, what a year it's been. 2018, as some people like to call it.
That's it.
Have you not heard that?
No.
2018. Oh yeah, on like social media, it tends to be the young millennials.
I'm not on Tumblr, sorry.
Not Tumblr, but like online
2018.
online world. Call it 2018 because lots of like gay things and queer things in
happen,
general.
but that's every year.
I know, but I feel like it's like, you know, there's a lot that's happened. What has been your highlight of 2018, Beth?
I feel like I mentioned it too much, but hanging out with Alison Bechdel.
Oh my god. Meeting Alison. Yeah, it was the absolute highlight. The culmination of our career.
Yeah.
What next? Who knows? Yeah, Fun Home at the Young Vic was a dream come true. Meeting Alison was also a dream come true. What else have we done this year? I think that's been a pretty good highlight, to be honest.
Yeah, that's the one, really. I mean, we've seen so many amazing shows, it's hard to like pick out a theatre highlight because there's just been so much.
Edinburgh was a huge highlight, being up there for the whole month.
Yeah, that was awesome. Being able to like actually have our own place and
Oh my god.
go and see most of the stuff that we wanted to see and talk about was awesome.
So, moving forward, we have a wonderful interview with the inspirational,
Absolute inspiration to both of us.
wonderful mentor as well in many ways to a lot of the community, I think.
And sensational performer,
Yes.
for anybody who hasn't seen her work yet.
Rubyyy with 3Y Jones, who is starring in Whole on At the Royal Court now until January the 12th. So we were lucky enough to have an exclusive interview with Rubyyy about the production, but we also talk about some other things. We talk about Ruby's home life, how she discovered lip syncing and recognising even that within her youth as being a form of cabaret and burlesque that she performed. We talk about RuPaul's Drag Race coming to the UK.
We talk about the process of creating the show Whole and how it was written by Ellie Kendrick, but, you know, it had input from all of the different artists that were involved, which I think is a cool collaborative thing to do, especially in a space like the Royal Court, which is very much like, it's a playwrights theatre, but to have something where you're actually kind of including the whole creative team in creating the text, I think that's pretty awesome. It's pretty cool.
And we got to see Whole and absolutely loved it.
Yeah, beautiful.
Just go see it if you can. The performers are amazing.
The design is amazing. The costumes are beautiful.
Oh my god, the costumes.
Yeah. And the set as well with the holes in it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very intelligent production as well. It's got a lot of layers to it that you will find yourself thinking about afterwards. So also get the playtext because there's a lot in there that you might miss and a lot of references. So without further ado, we'll pass over to ourselves and Rubyyy at the Royal Court for our wonderful Christmas interview.
Don't forget to stick around after the interview to hear some recommendations.
Enjoy! Yes. Okay. All good?
We're good.
Okay.
Yay. Yay. Hello, everybody. Hi.
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 We are here with the amazing Rubyyy with 3 Ys, Jones.
Hello.
Say hi, Rubyyy.
Hi, everyone.
We are in the Royal Court's lush little recording studio.
Isn't this great?
It's cozy, it's warm, there's lots of equipment we're not using.
We look super professional.
Yeah.
So profesh. We've already done the social media pics.
Yeah.
How profesh we are in our studio. And we are here to talk about the show you're in at the moment, Rubyyy, Hole.
Yes, Hole, Hole.
Hole. Before we get into talking about the show,
Yes.
would you like to tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you've come from, how you've got to this glorious stage?
Oh my gosh, such a long story.
Life
actually.
story.
Where
in-
to begin?
in 5.
I was born 10 weeks early in 8. No, anyway, so I'm here doing Hole at the Royal Court. I'm here because this is a show that has brought people, performers from all walks into a collaborative theatrical environment. And before I came into this space, I was known primarily and almost exclusively as the Queen of Queerlesque, working within cabaret and performance art, and wherever, frankly, they'll let me do that. I've been doing that. Ooh, this I love
backstage
the
announcement.
backstage
We are really
announcement.
backstage.
It's
That's
for real.
like
We're really there.
backstage at the Royal Court. Little announcements coming over the tannoy. The tannoy's been switched off, so that
The
will be the only
tannoy
time
has
that
been
happens.
switched off.
So yeah, you are known as the Queerlesque Queen.
Yes, and
Good way of putting it.
Queerlesque is, really the epicenter of Queerlesque is in this country and in this city, and I was dubbed the Queen of Queerlesque by the person who said the words, as far as I know, for the first time, which is a drag queen named Beth, formerly known as the Queerlesque performer Mr. Mistress. And so now Queerlesque is like a thing. There's like festivals all over the world, all this and that. So it's kind of funny, actually, to be known as the Queen of Queerlesque, because it's kind of cheeky. It's like saying I'm the Queen of Burlesque. But at the same time, fuck yourself, I am.
Yes! Yes. And I will just tell the listeners that I just took part in the 10th Queerlesque course that Rubyyy has done. And it was brilliant and amazing, and I learned so much.
Wonderful. And if anyone's listening and wants to know more, I have another course coming up in the new year.
Yes,
Yes.
I cannot recommend it enough. You will be terrified, but it will be amazing and it will be worth it. And yeah.
I'm putting pennies in my piggy bank as we speak.
Oh my
so
gosh,
that I might one day be able to do the Queerlesque
I have several
cream.
options for payments.
Yeah.
I'm very flexible and affordable.
Awesome. So that's Rubyyy.
Yeah, yes.
What is this show that you're in?
Oh, yes, because we were talking about how in on the posters it's described as a takeover, and yet reviewers are calling it a play. And so it's a different experience for different people.
Definitely. It definitely is. And I don't describe it as a play. I describe it as a bit of theater or an experience or an expression. Because to me, does have that live art cabaret element of actually living and existing each night and within each show as kind of like a separate entity. Of course, there is the script that we have to follow and the places the directors have told us to go. But at the same time, because we don't observe the fourth wall, which I think is so intrinsic to, quote, a play, as opposed to the theater or the art that we have created here, we're interacting and engaging and challenging and incorporating the audience in a different way. Now, it's different from cabaret in that I can't just turn around and tell someone to shut the fuck up and put their phone away or whatever. I still have to keep within the boundaries of the script, of course. But actually, there is a lot of space for play and challenge and magic and things to happen. So, no, if it's a play with 3 Ys, that's for sure.
Ah, I love that! Play with me, right? So you've spoken about your directors, and so just to explain, the production is written by Ellie Kendrick, who is known mostly as an actor, and is directed by Helen and Abi from RashDash, who we previously had on a podcast episode.
Okay, cool.
So we're big fans.
And if listeners are regular listeners, then they will know all about RashDash.
Okay,
Yes.
cool.
But not about them directing a play that's written by Ellie, which is starring Rubyyy. So how did that amazing collaboration come about?
Well, so I don't know actually all the ins and outs of it, to be honest. But basically, I was in Taylor Mac at the Barbican, and I come off stage. Yeah, oh, by the way, the little thing about it. And I come off stage, and there's this little email from the Royal Court saying, Rubyyy, we are considering you for the show. Are you available for these dates? And when can we come see you? And I was like, what? Okay, yeah, sure. I'm available for the dates, and you can come see me at this time. And you know how it works in the biz, and listeners, this is how it works in the biz. People say they're going to come to things, and they don't come to things. And that's fine. Actually, you learn not to hold it against anyone, because it's definitely not personal. So it was actually Queerlesque graduation number 9 RashDash were there, as well as Ellie Kendrick. They came, they saw the whole show, they saw all the shenanigans. We had a little chat afterwards, and then they asked me actually to come and be part of the research and development of the piece that happened here at the Royal Court at the end of June of this year. So actually within that development, there was 4 out of the present cast members also participating in the research and development of the piece. And what is the piece? What was it? How could they even direct it? That was like one thing that we explored in the R&D. Like, what is this nebulous bunch of amazing, you know, thoughts and words and whatever? How do we make it a thing? And what is the thing that we are making? So that was a really interesting process to be part of. But also it was really interesting as we're going through this week of R&D, one of the hottest weeks of the year, just all this contact improv, sweating all over each other, languishing. It was amazing though, because we're covered with so much sweat. I actually felt very cool. And it was really wonderful, but also at the same time, we didn't know if we were going to be used in the show or if this was just to like help bring a shape to it, because we're all, again, each performer that you see in the show is very much an expert and a specialist and brings so much specific things to this work and to this expression. But then you can also understand why maybe then for the actual run of it, they might cast 5 actresses and see how much they can actually do. You know, as far as the physical theater aspects and those things. But surprise, 4 out of 5 of us were in the production as well, which has been, again, really astonishing because they're all amazing artists, and what everyone's bringing individually is so much shaped the show. And of course, RashDash has shaped the show so much. And actually, interestingly, because I'm not super in the world of theater, I didn't know who they were, and I didn't know of their work. And I actually made a point to actually look at everybody a little bit, but then I didn't want to look at their work. And I'm looking forward to, after this process is totally over, really immersing myself in what they have done and what they have created. But I thought, actually, it's quite interesting for me to come in and not know who they are and not have expectations for what they might do or what might be right or wrong or how they might operate, and then therefore what I might or might not suggest. So it's been actually a very fascinating collaborative process.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't know you were brought on so kind of early on in the process.
Yes.
So at that point, was the script still exactly as it is in terms of the words that you say? Is that the same as it is today, or has that been played with in any way?
So from the R&D, I cannot remember if there was any shift between the R&D and week 1, but we had a whole week of previews, and every single preview we performed a different show. Wow. So not totally, but every single day cut, every single day new script, every single day shift, every day new prop, new this, which was really, I think, important for the show, because obviously it's a new work. It is very nebulous and kind of ephemeral, and to be able to have those previews was actually so important, and it's really changed the shape of the show quite a bit. So yeah,
it retains a sense of spontaneity with it, because definitely when we were watching it, it felt very alive and it felt very cabaret-ish.
Yes.
Very as though, even though you weren't going to turn around and tell someone to shut up and deviate from the script, it felt like you could have done.
Yes.
Like it felt like a space where that might have been a potential. So it felt very like immediate in that way, which probably comes from cutting it and keeping it.
Yeah, and
like,
it's definitely
slightly
like,
different every night.
what is happening next?
Yes, I can imagine. It's interesting knowing now when the performers were brought on board as well, because something that we were discussing is, you know, there's not specific characters that we become attached to, but we are attached to the performers, and the performers are so distinct. And obviously in cabaret, you play with persona, and I was wondering, do you feel like you are your cabaret persona in this play? Do you feel like you are Rubyyy Jones? Do you feel like you are Woman 1 or Woman 3?
Are you acting?
So there definitely is an element of acting to it, and remembering like, oh yes, acting, that's a thing. But there is definitely an element of Rubyyy Jones in the show, and the persona of Rubyyy Jones. And it was really interesting. I actually went through a little like, you know, personal moment through the R&D when they were like, Rubyyy, we don't want to say do Rubyyy Jones in this moment, but can you do Rubyyy Jones in this moment? And there was that thing of like, oh no. But it was like this kind of interesting little process, because I moved to this country to pursue theater. I pursued it hard. I got to a place where I was getting offers, and then when I saw the offers and I saw what was being offered, I was like, no thank you, I've had enough. And I kind of stepped away actually from theater for that reason, because I felt like actually being the person I was before I developed Rubyyy Jones and before I became more autonomous as a woman and a person in the world, and before I knew more things about the world as well, the box that people wanted me to go in I did not find very interesting. So I realized that actually over these last 8-ish, 10-ish years working in performance art, I have developed my own box. And it is the nature, I think, of being a performer in the industry. People will always put you in a box. They will. And I think maybe that's okay as long as you built that box yourself. And I kind of said to myself, you know, Rubyyy, as much as this might feel a little like your ego's bruised right now, and you know you can do something else or whatever you're worried people don't think that you can do, the truth of the matter is this is a persona and a character that I have literally been working on for 8 years. Of course they want it. You know, it's golden, thoughtful, engaging, finely honed and balanced material. Of course they want it. So of course there is an element to Rubyyy Jones, but I have really, really enjoyed finding this other entity, because Rubyyy Jones is wonderful because I do get to share and like play in a lot of different energies and dynamics and things like that, but there are definitely elements to this character that are not Rubyyy Jones and would never be.
I love what we do get as someone who knows your work are the little signifiers of what gets to do with your costume, your pasties.
Yes.
I
blinged my own costume as well.
Did you?
And I actually was a little bit like, I'm going to need some sparkles on my costume. You know, if we're going to be, saying this is Rubyyy Jones, the Queen of Burlesque, and we're going to go with pasties, I'm going to need some more sparkles, but I wanted to do it myself because that's part of my practice, and that's part of the history of drag and burlesque to, you know, at least do some of your own work on your costumes. And I love putting on something that I've spent hours just individually making just right. I feel it and I feel stronger in it, so I did make that happen.
Is that something that each of the other performers bring something to their, like, to the stage? Maybe with you it was sticking on little bits onto your costume, but did you feel like you were like kind of exchanging learning with the other
Definitely. And like as far as like even the movement that you see in the show, like all of that, like 95% of it came from the performers in the show. Like each little moment, each little phrase, like that's the Rubyyy, that's the Allison, that's the Cassie, and we do it in succession. And you know, that's a very interesting way to work, and it's been really fun like that. But it's been really interesting to kind of each be facing each other's like styles, you know, like it's so funny to Ava, who is an amazing dancer and has been in the industry for probably 40 years, to watch her have to get her mind around the strange gyrations I was asking them to do. I just thought was so fascinating and so amazing. And similarly, Ronke, who's probably the one who doesn't come from as much of a movement background, what she introduced as well was just, you know, so special and so individual. And that's been, definitely a constant throughout. Not so much maybe in the costumes. That's just me.
That's just a Rubyyy thing.
You know, well, Ebony as well, because costume's part of her practice. So Ebony got costume zhuzh also.
Yeah, there was a lot of zhuzh in the costume.
Yes.
Big zhuzh.
I love all the wings as well.
Yeah, amazing. Our props manager Zoe made those, and she is fabulous.
The mythology influence, that seemed to be, the wings was the biggest kind of visual nod to all these references that the text has in it about Medusa and like all of these Pandora, and also astrophysics. Because why not combine those things?
I love it.
And also I think I read or heard that Ellie Kendrick was influenced by Beyonce as well.
Yes, Beyonce's Lemonade.
Did you all watch it on the first day?
Seem to be slightly reminiscent of
We
that.
didn't, but I also did the thing. I was like, actually, I haven't seen Beyonce's Lemonade, and I chose not to watch it. It's like literally like
How did you avoid that?
Sometimes I don't know why I'm like this, and maybe your listeners can tell me. But when something's really popular, sometimes I'm like, no. Or it's like not no forever, but I was like, I'm just gonna wait till all the hype, like all that dies away, so I can just absorb it and enjoy it for what it is and take it in. And then this came up, and then I was like, well, I'm not gonna watch it till after, because again, I kind of want to have another perspective. I don't want to have, even though I understand, because, you know, obviously I understand what the phenomenon of Lemonade is and how it is this amazing extended music video and some of the major moments that we've all like kind of had burned into our brains because of pop culture. So, you know, I have an understanding of it, but I want to enjoy it for what it is and not have it be so wrapped up in this experience, but then also be the person who isn't so tied to that as a means of communication.
True counterculture.
Yeah. So did you do this? Have you done the same with like the Greek myth influences and the astrophysics influences? Just taken what's in the script without kind of doing too much, going to the classroom and doing my actually I'll study and become an astrophysicist.
We watched many videos about what is a black hole.
Oh, tell us.
Oh my gosh, don't make me. Like, we watched many videos about black holes and singularities and patterns of how that works and like how observing changes the outcomes of experiments and all that kind of stuff. We did do our proper actor work of that, of knowing what the F we were talking about. Please don't make me explain it. However,
we believe you.
Yeah. We definitely did. And we did explore that with the myths. But also when it came to the myths, what was really interesting I found to discuss was what was our recollection of those things without doing the research. And mine was, just that comes to mind, was I always thought Pandora was always in the box and she was the thing that came out the box. Like my brain remembers her always being like, is she the box? Like I just realized I didn't even know the story. So it's really interesting that I'd carried this whole thing of she, again, her having this responsibility for pain and darkness on the world and that she was this box. There was no separateness of her with that calamity. And so that's really interesting, and that was interesting as well to like bring in each of us having these different memories of, and specifically why were we told the story of Medusa as children? Like why was that important for us to absorb?
And what effect did it have when you absorbed it inevitably?
Yes, exactly.
Gosh. Yeah, we've seen a few things recently that kind of play with Greek myths or Medusa or these kind of, I think these female figures who might be damned or scary or had something horrible happen to them are suddenly, I don't know why, being rediscovered because women are allowed to make theatre at the moment.
Yes. Thank fuck for that. Can I say fuck?
Yes.
Yes. You kind of have spoken about the mixture between you bringing all yourselves to the role, but there was a script and then you had the R&D process. Was Ellie as a writer there with you much in the rehearsal, or was she kind of like you do, you know, hand over to RashDash, hand over to the performers?
So Ellie was there a lot, but she also was, anytime there was a moment of, Ellie, did you mean this? She'd be like, it doesn't matter what I meant, you know, and sometimes she would say, everything everyone's saying is great. You know, I'm overhearing and nothing is a no. So in a lot of ways, she was very present. And she was there with any questions we might have, or can you explain this myth or this quantum mechanics mechanism to us one more time, or whatever. She was very available and she was very present, but she wasn't, I don't know, actively trying to steer anything. She wasn't, unless it was necessary, and in that case we're usually twisting our arm like, please Ellie, tell us what you mean when you said this.
Yeah, because there's some interesting notes we read in the play text as well that are, you know, quite some specific directions. And we were talking about the character, the big woman, and how big can be used in many ways, whether it's the way that you take up space with your voice and all these different things. And interestingly, you know, the set lends itself to that as well, because you're on this huge stage and all the audience are around the corners, and you know, the stage itself takes up the most space, so we know what role we're taking as an audience.
It's a very raised, it's a very high raised stage, so as an audience member you feel like you're much smaller than the performers, than all of the performers, because the performers are raised up and under a spotlight, which is another really clever thing, playing with spotlights, but I don't want to spoil that for the listeners. But yeah, when it came to looking at those indications in the text of things like big woman and any stage directions that were given, did you feel like you were wedded to those? Or?
In some ways we were. I think when it comes especially to something new like this, I think you want to, as much as possible, honor what the playwright has put or what the designer has created or whatever it is. But of course some things had to go. You know, some little things, some maybe felt like bigger things. And in that way, nothing totally was taken out. But like, for instance, there is a thing, if you read the play text, there's this moment where this stand-up comedian's telling a very horrible rape joke, and what stops them each time telling this joke is gunge falling from the ceiling, covering them in gunge.
Ooh.
And we did tech that for several hours.
Wow.
And then it got cut. And now it's just a lighting and sound cue. And that's for obvious reasons. You know, it's a dance show, essentially. It's a physical theater show. We did everything we could to manage the gunge. But then after the gunge is the Coca-Cola fizz bit. So, you know, it was a lot to manage. But, you know, of course we tried to make everything and keep everything as authentic to the writer's vision as possible. But also, you know, sometimes some things have to go.
Of course.
Did you feel pressured at all by the stage direction, by the description of the big woman taking up space, using her voice, using her body, or did you feel like, yeah, I can do this? I'm Rubyyy Jones.
Well, I think, you know, what's funny is I wondered about the show being cast with literally bigger people, and I was not sure how that was gonna turn out. And when I showed up the first day, and I would say, in a way, I'm physically the biggest one. And, you know, essentially in the world of being a big person, like, I can still buy clothes on the high street. Like, I'm what Sophie Hagen refers to as a small fat. I'm a small fat, or an in-betweenie, and 8 hours of rehearsal a day with RashDash have made me an even smaller fat, frankly. So it's been really interesting because I expected there to be more about the actual space being taken up, and I think that the design has kind of taken that role, and maybe Ebony's wig, you know, it's taken up that place as well, which I love that wig so much. It is huge and glorious and amazing. But it's been really interesting to then, therefore, yes, play with what is bigness and what is taking up space and what it does it mean to do that if you're not physically doing that, even though we are to a degree as well, as you said. So, yes.
That reminds me of, I think you gave me that direction one week in class in Queerlesque where we were performing or something, and you were like, Pippa, you need to take up more space, or, you know, you need to extend. And as a small person, I you know, I'm not used to doing that, and so it's quite, how do you take up space when you're suddenly given a platform and given a stage?
Yes, and we've discovered there's many ways.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like it sometimes is a challenge for me as a performer, is that I feel like often, oh God, I'm taking up too much space, I'm bigger for an actress. And I, you know, like, oh, my voice is really loud, and people constantly in real life saying, can you use your inside voice? And things like that. And and I feel like, oh God, I'm too big all the time, even though I'm 5 foot tall. But however, as soon as a performer I get asked, like, for example, in drag, be bigger, take up more space, I suddenly go, oh God, I don't know how to do that, you know? It's like that conflict between, like, feeling like, oh God, I'm taking up too much space. So suddenly when you're asked to take up space, it's like, what does that actually mean? Like, but I think definitely the cabaret persona of Rubyyy Jones is a big inspiration for that. Like, I wasn't surprised to hear that you give that instruction to pivot, because I feel like it's something you do magnificently on stage, as when you're in your Queerlesque home as well as in the Royal Court.
Well, you know, when I just think about it and the nature of theater and stuff, like, it is about, like, there is always a level of, like, show-offness and of being something and a figure or an individual or something that people are looking at. And so I just think more. Give them more to look at. And of course I love stillness and I love smallness and I love all those things as well, but it's even more delicious when you take up space and then take it away. You know, so I think that's one thing that I find really interesting. And I give the same note to someone who was, you know, 6'5" with super long limbs, like, because they would have learned to not take up space in a totally different way, but would have absorbed the exact same thing.
Yes. I thought we could talk a bit about rage.
Yes, please.
Things we can take up space with.
Yeah, because the show is very much fueled by rage.
Yes.
And talking about your persona, and that's something that you you very much are able to embody. Something I find very hard. I find it very hard to access rage.
Yes.
Me and Beth were talking about this, and she's like, no, like, I'm rageful all the time.
I'm furious.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And these different ways we're socialised and absorb the world in different ways of how we react to those things.
Yes.
I find it harder to give vulnerability because I'm so used to being like, no, I'm going to get angry and shout about it.
Yeah.
And then to be like, actually, this hurts me. It's quite difficult. But it's the same. I feel like it comes from the same place.
It definitely does. It definitely does. And the show talks about that, like the hardening, how you just want to be gentle in the world, but you can't because then you're not safe or you're, vulnerable in whatever way. And how it is a normal, quote unquote, process or a natural process that we see actually in nature. We always talk like, oh, well, coal with enough pressure becomes a diamond. Fuck you. Like, leave me alone. I'm a bit of coal and I'm great and I don't need all this motherfucking pressure, This is something that is a common theme, and I'm sure people from all genders and all walks have their own pressures and restrictions in that way, and some people don't have as much, obviously, restriction, but I, in grade 7, so what is that here? I can't remember, but that means I was 12 years old. I can remember that was one of the first times I was in, we had home ec class and shop class. And home ec was where we learned how to cook and sew and do things around the house. And then shop class was where we learned how to do like woodworking and soldering metal and other like random stuff. And the first day of our tech class, our shop teacher said, your first assignment for this class is to make like a little place marker in your A4 lever arch, I think you call them, I can't remember. Anyway, but where you put your little notes and things for the class. So your assignment, 12-year-olds, is to make a little picture, use things like hammers and saws and whatever. And if you're a girl, you're going to put eyelashes and high heels on your hammer. And if you're a boy, you're going to do this. And I was just like, hand up, and I said, excuse me, I just need to go to the bathroom, and I just went right up to the principal's office, and I was like, my shop teacher is being sexist.
Oh my God! Well, you're wrong, baby!
I just couldn't believe it. Like, to me, it was just so, and it's always, things like that have been always so obvious to me, and so annoying, and I think partially it's because I have 3 brothers, and also a dad who kind of tried to raise me as a boy, because he didn't really know how to be gentle either. He's a very hard, tough brick kind of man, much softer in his older years, but was very hard person. And so in those ways, it was always kind of black and white and a bit like more like, well, just go out there and do it. And so I did sometimes have this kind of, I don't know, male privilege of just being like, you know what, this is wrong and this and that. And then that's the one side of us, my dad being like, yeah, kind of a little less gentle, a little less emotional. And then on the other side, my mom, who is incredibly intellectual. And when I got a call home from the principal about that, my mom, she said to me just most recently, she was just like, phew, like, because it's so hard raising girls in the world, and maybe I'm not doing such a bad job, because all moms think they're doing a bad job, right? Which is so sad. I think they all do to some degree, even though they can have, like, I can say to my mom's face, like, I could not have been who I am without you as my mother. Like, you're not perfect, but nobody is. You're my perfect mom, though. And she'll be like, well, I didn't do the best I could, But why does my dad not think that? It probably hasn't crossed his mind. But that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
Gender politics.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
So I've always had a bit of a fire, basically.
Where did you grow up?
I'm from Paris, Canada.
Paris?
I'm from Paris, Canada.
I didn't know there was a Paris in Canada.
Well, the thing
is
is,
London.
Yes. So, Paris is between Toronto and London, and is in the county of Oxford. It is very near Cambridge and Kitchener and Waterloo, which was formerly known as Berlin. Very close to the small towns of Ayr and Burf and all these other places. And this is one thing, now that I've lived in the UK for 13 years, I realized, none of the people or white people who left really wanted to leave where they were, so they just were like, this is now Paris, and this is now New Oxford and New York and all these other things. So it's, very interesting. But because where I'm from, it's named one of the most beautiful towns in all of North America. And it has these 2 rivers that meet in the middle of the town, right in the center of it. And they found all this plaster of Paris in the river. So Paris it is, and it was. And yeah.
Interesting. Interesting stuff. Sorry, that was a bit of a deviation. I was just
totally
curious.
fine.
I was just like
let the children know.
nosing into where this 12-year-old badass came from.
Well, and also, it was there was like 900 people or something ridiculous in that town when I grew up. It was a village. I'm from a village.
900.
It is now a place that probably in the future will be considered Greater Toronto, because it's like an hour and 15-hour-and-a-half drive to Toronto, and it's just expanding. And there's people who live, quote, in Paris, who live in new suburbs, who've never been downtown Paris, don't know about, the history of it and things. So it's very interesting. I don't get to go back a ton, which is unfortunately the nature of being a freelance professional. But, I go back every a year to 18 months, and I'm always just astonished. Like, I don't know, it's like touristy now, and it's bizarre, but I guess that's the way things go.
Tourist gonna tourist.
Yeah.
Thinking about those things, I thought maybe we could talk about inspirations. Because who maybe inspired you growing up and going into cabaret and burlesque, and also now with our feminist faves.
Yeah.
Do you have anyone that you want to shout about?
Okay, cool.
And promote?
Okay, so inspiration first, I guess. It's really funny because burlesque is, in a way, not so simple to summarize, because it's like an umbrella term. There's actually so many different types and styles and things. But it wasn't till I started actually doing any of it and like doing it that I realized, oh my God, I've been doing burlesque my whole life. In a way. And also because burlesque is, the word even is not something that everybody knows and knew. When I was in high school, I did competitive dance. And they had a thing called a music theater category. And music theater category was lip syncing.
Oh, for children.
What? Yes. So I like have all these like toddler-sized trophies back in Canada from my lip sync solos from back in dance competition days.
Wow.
But I didn't call it lip syncing. I don't even think I knew what the fuck. And so I was doing that, and then I was doing like lip syncing to Gotta Get a Gimmick from Gypsy, but not like absorbing like what burlesque even was. And so that was stuff I was doing when I was 17. I made my professional theater debut when I was either 15 or 16. I can't remember. It was in the Vagina Monologues. I had like a guest spot in that. There's a specific monologue for a young person in that show. And so a lot of things that have happened, have, built into the career I have now have been there from the beginning. I had a mentor when I was really young who basically ran the local theater group, Paris Performers Players or whatever.
Are they still going?
Probably. But this person is such a sensational comedy writer, and from the age of 6 I was doing these 2-week-long intensives every summer until I was 17, where children and people of all ages, we would write and stage and costume and write music and do whatever, a new production every summer. And so from a very young age I was doing the writing and the conceiving and thinking of the bigger picture and things. And that definitely came from this woman, Heather Parker, who I still would love to be like my remote comedy writer for things, because they're just brilliant. And like, it's amazing to be here at the Royal Court and to be surrounded by, fancy professionals. But the truth of the matter is the people who have shaped my career are people who still live in Paris, Ontario, and have a retail job in the day and write scripts for their passion projects at night. Like, those really are the people who shaped everything that I do, and probably everything that I will do as well. And of course, Tim Curry, Divine, blah, 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 all those people now.
Yes, all the names.
Yes, of course.
Yes. Well, we were just reading and discussing, obviously, about Drag Race coming to the UK.
Oh, yeah.
And what that might do to the cabaret and drag scene here.
I still haven't watched it. The first episode of our podcast, Pippa was like, have you never watched Drag Race? And I was like, no, I've never watched it. And then I watched like 2 episodes, but it wasn't for me.
It's really tricky because...
you should be on it.
I should be on it. I'll think about it. But I got into Drag Race with meth back in the day when, like, we were watching season 2 as it was coming out.
Nice.
And I remember when we brought over Raja to do the Family Feud show at the Black Cap, like, no one knew what Drag Race was. And I remember even for years after that, when we had DWV and Latrice and whoever else, I'd be like, have you heard of this? And there was always the crickets. But the shows were still selling out. The shows were still packed. It had a cult following from the beginning because people were just thirsty for it. It was also around that time, please excuse this word, Tyranny Shack was happening here in London and Tyranny Academy was happening. And that was actually like a really interesting crossover because that was a huge platform for drag that we've lost in the city, and a huge platform for queer performers for like meeting and finding out about other networks and things as well. So I've been involved and like connected to Drag Race from the beginning in a way that feels very hard for me to be like, fuck you RuPaul and fuck you Drag Race, because the truth is it has brought so much to so many, and actually it's brought a lot to few also. And I think what's important is that we just continue talking about it and we just don't accept it and swallow it and just, you know, absorb it and pretend like it's perfect. I think as long as like keep watching, but also keep the conversation.
Yeah.
You know, keep being critical of it. Like the Christmas special is coming out and there's 2 trans women on it. And I can't say that I don't feel like that isn't progress. And yeah, maybe it's demonstrative, but it's happening and it's changing the conversation. And for that to happen is actually amazing.
That's awesome,
Yeah, I think that what Drag Race has done is that I can tell any of my friends who are involved in theatre and cabaret or not, oh, do you want to go see this show? And it might not be a Drag Race star, but it will be, but I can say, oh, it's drag, and they'll understand what they mean. They understand the artistry.
Yes.
And that it makes it starts more conversations. And so go see the Drag Race queens. They're amazing to see live, but also go see the others.
Yeah.
And see drag kings.
Yes. And I don't know how, but I'd love to do that for burlesque, because I think burlesque is just, it's used by everyone. It's enjoyed by so many people. It's just something that is so multifaceted and interesting and fabulous. And I just think because it's mostly women and because it does involve sexuality, it's going to take a little bit longer. And I'm going to do my damnedest to do whatever I can.
Be the RuPaul for burlesque.
Well, they do call me Mama Ru. Before they called her Mama Ru, by the way.
Oh no! But you'll always be the queen of queer
Well, yes.
Like that title sticks and
Stuck.
is pure claim to yours.
Yes.
Oh my god! How did we get onto RuPaul?
We just
It
did.
just always happens.
It happens.
Well, here's a cleanser for that. If anybody needs that, I want to say my feminist fave.
Oh yes,
Yes.
please.
It's the Anti Diet Riot Club. You can find them on Instagram under that name. And they do events which are multifaceted and multi-whatever. And it is about connecting offline, but also, you know, obviously opportunities to connect online as well. But to be in a place together as people who are saying fuck you to diets and body shaming and diet culture and the ways that capitalism and patriarchy rule our lives. And so I think that, you know, anyone and everyone could benefit from kind of exploring their feelings and their programming around such things. So that's my feminist fave today.
Anti Diet Riot Club.
Anti Diet Riot Club.
Cool. I'm totally gonna check that out.
Please do.
Yeah.
Yes. Not a fan of diet culture.
No.
Even casual stuff like, oh, how have you lost weight? No.
Yes.
Yeah.
Stop.
Yes.
Do not comment on other people's bodies.
I feel like it's like a one rule that people should live by is not commenting on other people's weight gain, weight loss, whatever, you know, just don't talk about it, but it's just not a part of our culture.
Yeah, and you know what? I will comment on somebody's body changing, but I will say, your body has changed. What is going on with your body? What is going on with your life? If I feel like I have that relationship, obviously I'm not saying
close
that
to
to
somebody.
strangers.
Yeah,
But also, I would
in the
never bring
workplace
their
or-
weight into it.
Yeah,
Because that's, to me, it's neither here nor there. Your body is shifted.
yeah, it's not necessarily a great thing or necessarily a bad
No.
thing.
It's
or
just
like,
something that's
it's
happened.
just
It's
a
just something that's
change.
happened.
Yeah, I
Bodies
feel like people
change.
talk about it as though it's like the weather, and it's like no,
Yes.
no.
But I have to say, you know, being a North American, I do think that the level of intensity on it there is just astronomical. Like, I remember even when I moved here 13 years ago, I was like, immediately, I was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, people who are fat are allowed to have style.
Oh.
Like,
So
are
the
allowed to
UK is better
exist
at
and
that?
be. Yeah, I think in Europe and the UK, well, you know, it's hard to tell because now in this time we've had this big shift, and you know, like there's the only reason why sometimes things happen there like more quickly or whatever is just because literally there's more people to get behind a cause like fuck you diet culture or whatever it might be. So maybe I can't say maybe we're even now. But it was really interesting when I moved here because I actually felt like a little bit of freedom from some of the tyranny I had previously felt.
That's nice. That's heartening.
Interesting.
It is, yeah. Do you have a feminist fave, Beth?
I think my feminist fave for this month is I am about 2/3 the way through Afua Hirsch's book Brit-ish, and ish is in brackets, and it's about her experience of growing up in London, specifically in Wimbledon, as a black mixed race woman, and finding her identity within. She goes to like a private school and she's surrounded by white people, and she's like looking she goes to find, oh, am I African, am I black British, and what does this mean? But it's written so beautifully. It's like almost like reading a novel, even though it's a memoir / social, cultural, observational thing. It feels like it's so descriptive, especially of things in London, and she makes such specific links between things that I've seen, monuments that I've seen, that either include black representation that isn't necessarily always talked about, or that are monuments to people who have links to slavery and all of the ways that is so perpetuated in British culture. And so she's kind of describing poetically this city that I know so well, that, you know, as a Londoner, it makes it so kind of feel very relevant and very connected and very immediate and very easy to access. So I can go out and think about that place that she was talking about and the story behind it, and I can literally go look at it and go to that plaque in Trafalgar Square and go, I walk past that every day, you know. Cool. Do you have a fem fave?
Yeah.
Yes, my feminist fave this month is my current queen, Ariana Grande. I think she's great. I think that she is selling a really good message for young women that they don't often get to see, and especially her personal life being so public and how she uses that. And, you know, the song most recently that I think of is the one that she just released, Thank You Next, which was, everyone expected her to have a diss track for her ex, right? You know, she broke off an engagement. It's all very much in the public eye. They expect her to be this, this horrific woman. You know, you're either one or the other, right? And instead she came out with this track that's all about being grateful and what she's learned from it, and about, I've met someone new. You might say I've moved on too fast, but, you know, this new person, we're having great discussions. That person's me. Like, I'm checking with myself and what I want. Aww. And I'm just like, this is like the biggest pop star in the world right now, and this is the message that she's telling young women. It's, you know, be thankful for your exes. You learn so much from them. So she's someone that I'm looking forward to now. I will say that I think that she is getting away with, which is problematic, is that this girl tans herself.
Yes.
And she wasn't always as tanned as she is now, and I think that is, she wants to be a bit ambiguous, and I think that's a big issue that no one's really calling her out on.
Except on Twitter.
Except on Twitter, but not big enough. I don't think there's enough of it.
Yeah, it's not reaching.
Yeah,
it's not reaching everybody that she might be influencing with that behaviour. So
yeah, exactly. There'll be like funny memes comparing her, you know, when she was younger, but it's like actually, you know, she needs to be called out more on that. So yes, Ariana is, you know, my feminist favourite.
So that we can like Ariana, we just have to, you know, also include.
Yeah,
and like hope that she is maybe the kind of person who would listen and go, oh shit, yeah, I'm gonna.
I think she would. I think she just needs to properly have that.
Have that conversation.
Discussion. Yes. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
A pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Good luck with the rest of the run.
Yes.
Yeah, our listeners have got plenty of time to go and see it, but you better get tickets before it sells out.
Yeah, January 12th. It's selling out quick.
And we were going to plug, there's a cabaret night that's happening as well, but it's sold out, isn't it?
Yes, it is sold out.
Yes.
So Sorry,
if you
Melanie.
like the sound of Ruby's cabaret work, you can always, find
me everywhere. I'm the only Rubyyy with 3 Ys in the world, as far as I can tell.
Fabulous. So we will link to Rubyyy Jones. We will link to Hole at the Royal Court. And thank you very much for listening.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
You can catch Hole at the Royal Court, which is on until the 12th of January. Book.
Book it now. We've got a few more recommendations coming up for you. First up is another magnificent show that's on until January the 12th that we went to see, Divine Proportions. It is an immersive dining experience with cabaret and sexy people, burlesque.
Yes. And fire.
Yeah. So if you are a burlesque fan listening to this,
which I hope you are,
which
because
I hope you are, we just had Rubyyy Jones, so you love it. So Divine Proportions is like cabaret and burlesque, but you also get a full meal.
And can I just say how accommodating they are? As someone with a very annoying dietary requirement, as in I'm vegan and gluten free, and they catered for me, and it was delicious. And also I forget and it's like a posh meal. Like, I don't remember last time I had a meal that posh. Like,
yeah, it was fancy.
Yeah,
it was like 4 or 5 courses.
Yeah,
and like a kind of limoncello-y type thing as well.
Yeah, and we split a bottle of wine before going up to the meal, which I highly recommend. There's 2 choices of wine. We went for the cheaper one. It's not bad. It's not bad.
It was delish.
Yeah.
And also the Dionysus. There are 2 performers playing Dionysus. The one we saw, Leah Kirby, was sexy as hell. Oof. And the other one is played by Len Blanco, who we also know is sexy as hell. So
if you want a sex-fueled show,
yeah, if you're feeling that mustachioed, gender fluid, sex god vibe, then Dionysus is the one for you.
Yeah, and what was really nice about that is that because it drew in quite a mainstream crowd, so we could see a lot of maybe people out on like business group trips and stuff like that, who I'm sure can be quite tricky sometimes navigating as an immersive performer. But it's really nice to kind of be in that setting. Yeah,
and giving those people a little bit of mind-blowing gender fuckery and with some like intellectual stuff about Greek myths and the history of gender and sex, gender and partying,
and is on at Volts. Also, just new to town is The Convert at the Young Vic until January the 26th. The Convert is a 2022 play revived in this new production by Danai Gurira, who is famous from the Black Panther franchise, and starring Letitia Wright, also from the Black Panther franchise. So this is a dream team combo in the most perfect theatre for it, the Young Vic, and we just know it's going to be amazing, and we are urging everyone to go, and it's already selling really well.
It had its press night last night and it got inevitable rave reviews, so get tickets quickly if you want to see it. Maybe get tickets as a Christmas present for somebody.
Very good idea.
One play that's returning from last year, or has just returned to the West End after selling out the National Theatre, is Nine Night. So its transfer to Trafalgar Studios means that Natasha Gordon is the first black British woman to have a play on in the West End. It's a bit of a shocker. What the hell, West End?
That is, astounding, really, isn't it? So go see Nine Night, support the production. It's just fantastic from what we've heard. I haven't actually been able to see it.
No.
Because it's sold out.
It's on my Christmas list.
Yeah, same.
It's sold out at the National, so I couldn't get tickets to see it at the National, but yeah, it's officially on my Christmas list to see at Trafalgar Studios in its West End run. Speaking of Christmas, we have some seasonal shows to recommend for you. So if it's the time of year when you like to take your friends and family out to the theatre, the first one is finishing December 22nd, so get a move on. It's Head Rot Holiday, which is at the Hope Theatre. This is an incredible play. It was originally a clean break production, so it is all about the representation of women's experience of the criminal justice system. And it's a revival of an older play, and it's just spectacularly staged. The acting is absolutely magnificent in this show. It's a serious watch. It's a bit hard-hitting, and it's not let's go along and see a holiday Christmas fun show. But if you want something that's not going to be saccharine sweet, then I absolutely wholeheartedly recommend Head Rot Holiday at the Hope. And that's December 22nd it finishes.
Yeah,
so
it's
before
about,
Christmas.
It's about the nurses and the patients at a mental health hospital or residential institution. Yeah, to kind of
it's set at Christmas. It's set at Christmas, so it is a Christmas show, but it's like not a panto.
Yes, definitely not a panto.
Definitely not.
And also, it's really great to support pub theatre because it is in the Hope, which is above a pub, and shows the high standard that pub theatres can produce in their theatres, and people should go see it.
Now, if you do want pantos, we've heard a couple that are good this year. It's the same ones that are great every year, guys. It's the London pantos that are smashing it this year, especially in terms of representation, are Stratford East, Sleeping Beauty, until January the 12th, and Hackney Empire's Aladdin until January 6th. Sleeping Beauty has Crystal Dockery in it, who we loved in the Hive City Legacy show that was Hot Brown Honey that we raved about earlier in the year.
Yes, also known as Bunny Moretto, as a burlesque performer.
Mm-hmm. Excellent casting.
Yes. Oh my god. She plays Fairy Stardust, right?
Could not be more perfect for a role.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's in Sleeping Beauty at Stratford East.
Actually, I saw her post this on social media, so I'm just going to do the plug for her. She does these twerk it out workshops, which is like learning how to twerk, and they seem very fun and high energy and interactive, which is the kind of person that she is. And so I saw that she was doing something about, buying someone a twerk it out class as a Christmas present. So if that's something that someone would like to do, or you'd like to do it with your mates, then follow that up and look at Crystal Dockery.
That is a great shout. Good recommendation. And also Hackney Empire's Aladdin, which we're told is definitely not racist. Whoa!
Oh my god.
A production of Aladdin that doesn't use racial stereotyping.
Yes.
Woo! Enjoy.
It takes us to get to 2018 for us to be like, oh yes, finally. I'm sure others have existed, but yeah.
But most
hard to come by.
Yeah.
Hackney Empire have always been famous for their pantos and representation, and yes, we really need to go see one. Someone tell us what they're like, because we have yet to book. So yeah, that should be amazing.
Also, another recommendation that we've had that we haven't actually seen, but we had a strong recommendation for Mac Birmingham Midlands Arts Centre Birmingham show until December 31st is Rudolph. It's a Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer tale for all the family with a female Rudolph.
Ooh, Rudy is her name, which is very cute.
Very cute.
Yes, I'd love to see a female Rudolph excel.
Yeah, so Midlands Pals, go and check it out. Tell us what you thought. It sounds great. I wish we could get up there.
I know.
And
finally, there is Snow White and the Happy Ever After Beauty Salon by The Wrong Crowd, which is on at Oval House. We got to see Snow White because we were holding a post-show conversation afterwards talking about the representation of Snow White in a new kind of feminist reimagining of the character and other characters within it. And oh my god, it is the best child-friendly show. It is so funny. The production value is absolutely astronomical. The costumes, the set, the music, there's a live band, there's puppets, it's just, it's such a good production.
it's also the kind of show where, although you could bring kids to it and kids would love it, and we had a 14-year-old who'd come with her mum to talk about it at a post show, and she loved it. So it is literally for all ages, but it's the kind of show where you wouldn't feel embarrassed going without kids.
Yeah, there was mostly adults in the audiences when we went, and they were laughing their socks off.
There were some jokes for the adults.
There was, but it's not a panto. It is, I'd say it's a play.
It's
or
definitely
musical.
a play, musical, and it's going on until December 30th at the Oval House, and then after that it's going in January to Theatre Royal Plymouth. So if you're based in the Southwest, then you might have a chance to see it there.
And it's starring Karen Dohill, who we know, she's worked with us before doing Bechdel Testing Life, but also recently at Coconut, which is also on at the Oval House.
She is born to play a fairy tale princess. Can I just say, such a beautiful voice.
Her lovely, bright,
huge eyes, like a Disney princess. She is absolutely stunning in this. Perfect casting. And gorgeous little puppets as well.
The puppets
I can't even...
mold, and you get to meet the puppets after the production. Honestly, the performers, actors, musicians, puppeteers in this show are so incredible. It's only a 6-strong production.
And it doesn't focus around Snow White being rescued. It turns all these fairy tale tropes that are problematic on their head about evil stepmothers. It's just A dream.
And I think that's it for us.
Yeah, that's
So-
all the recommendations for December, Jan. We'll be back in the new year.
Oh, and have we got a lot to look forward to next year?
Save it. We'll save it for January. We're going to tell you about all the amazing stuff that's happening next year in 2019.
Have a wonderful Christmas season or whatever holiday you do celebrate. And we will see you in the new year.
Bye.
Bye.